Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada, we love you in Africa and China, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful October the 24th, 2019. Ground of Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, we got all these hockey players spinning around and spitting on the ice. We got problems in Houston. It's the epicenter of sports. Last night and tonight, Charlton, everything is exciting.
Yeah, you don't like when... Did you say good old boys were spitting in your ice or on your ice, Big C? You're nuts.
Spitting on the ice as they're running around the ring trying to keep the puck all slick.
Well, sometimes they just use butter or WD-40 in the mechanics world. It's all fair, love, and war. A lot of good things going on all over the sports universe. Baseball, they're really... I can't really say swinging the bat unless you're at Nationals. They're striking out if you're an Astro. NBA basketball is fantastic. They open up at the Chase Center tonight. Nearly $2 billion for a basketball arena in downtown San Francisco, just south of the Bay Bridge. And, of course, the Clippers come to town. Why bring Kawhi Leonard? Haven't they seen enough of Kawhi Leonard yet, Big C? Also, NFL football is always great to talk about, and college football is running strong. I want to say, just download the app, Big C Sports, brought to you by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast, and you'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Also, you can follow us on Xfinity Comcast Television, and just pull up Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television. Also coming to Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, Android TV, and smart TVs all over the universe. Big C, I just want to say we have this National Suicide Hotline, and I love bringing it to people. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. But I got to get in this hotline because I think it's helping a lot of people. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, as we talk about the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number in the key time of sports in America, sports is about teamwork.
Yeah.
When you think about the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, it's a team of great people out there assisting and helping others that are less fortunate, people that are in stress, that are downtrodden, that feel they have no way out. So many of our military veterans, Charlton, have felt that way in coming back from war.
Yeah.
But the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is there. It hosts a team of assistants, Charlton, that are willing to sit there and assist you emotionally, to listen to your problems, to understand your plight, to help you out, to guide you in the right direction, Charlton, because so many of these people feel left out and abandoned. And that's what leads to that horrific disease of suicide, Charlton. So we have prevention measures here in this country.
Yep.
And I hope everyone adheres to that and heeds that warning, Charlton, that there are so many vulnerable people out there in our society. And the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is there to help them off of that cliff, Charlton.
It can help. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can simply text 838-255. That's 838-255. I was talking to a friend over in San Francisco today, and there's so many people that are, jazzed up and happy about sports games, Big C, and everybody, of course, wants to see teams win. But we were still talking about some things that are happening in the world of politics. I'd be remiss if I did not say I don't take for granted what it is to be African American, and I just want to make sure that people understand that everything that we do in this society, we do it because people, they fought for this country. And also for Americans who were not even free all the time, even though they were free enough to fight, we have to have civil rights in this country. Today, Congressman Elijah Cummings, believe it or not, is the first African American lawmaker to lay in state at the U.S. Capitol. The first, Big C. He will rest 75 feet away from the inimitable civil rights icon Rosa Parks. And I want to say that Big C Sports, I believe, is the only sports show among our brethren in the sports universe that's willing to pay homage to Elijah Cummings. And I want to just say, whether it's black broadcasters or mainstream, it's a shame that a man that pretty much served his whole life for equality can't even get 10 seconds from people who he opened doors for. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, we're fortunate enough to use our breath every day. Elijah Cummings worked till his last breath, Charlton, fighting for equality in this country, fighting for justice. And that's what every American should hang their hat on, Charlton, is what he did for them. Not just African Americans, but all Americans. Because he was a man of the people, Charlton.
Yep.
He was a man who fought with dignity and character. And, he's laid to rest, in a few days, but to be able to lay in state at the Capitol, Charlton, to be the first African-American to be able to do that, the first African-American dignitary.
Yeah.
Our country has gone a long way, but it's not come that far when you think that Elijah Cummings in 2019 is the first African-American to be bestowed that honor, Charlton, in his passing. But we still have miles to tread in this country to gain equality.
Yeah, it's true. And so, again, it's important to me because we talk about Dr. King for the most part, but there are so many people that open doors to make it possible for people of color and mainstream to get along and break bread. And I just want to say, for a man that lived a good life, it's not a long life compared to how long people live now, born in 1951 and then passed in 2019. I just appreciate, it's one of the rare times that you have Republicans and Democrats that fight against each other to get things done or to obstruct in Washington, D.C. Even guys like Mitch McConnell, has some nice things to say. And we know that he hated President Obama. I don't know if it's all about politics or color, but maybe it's some of both. But even those people that have enmity for people of color can say good words, but I didn't hear any brethren talk about anything other than who's bigger, stronger, and faster. And I want to know, have we lost that social consciousness as black men if we're taken outside of the sports arena, Big C? Do we become intellectually vapid, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you have to wonder what you're asking, Charlton. Is everyone prescient about what's going on in society, or is it just self-serving? And this is an America that's full of self-serving people, so their interest is what's in front of them, not what's behind them.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, Big C, but it's still thoughts and prayers with his family, and just great that we were able to know what he's done in his work. I really just appreciate that I've learned a lot just about reading and following his speeches over the years, Big C. So for his family, may you always rest in peace, and may there be some new vanguards that are willing to at least say thank you, not how big, strong, and fast he was, Big C. It's important to me. I want to jump to the world of baseball. And, I want to call you the mystic for a reason. And there are things that we can say and be right or wrong. Nobody's perfect. But when I still go back to that comment you made about the road teams not having as much pressure when it comes to baseball, and sometimes football and basketball too. And for them good old boys, the Nationals, to defeat Houston 12-3 in Game 2 of the World Series. Now they lead the series 2-0. It was a beatdown. It wasn't just a win, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, one of the things about being a road team when you get to playoff games and series like this, Charlton, on a national scale, is that you don't have all the baggage that you have at home.
Yeah.
You don't have your phone ringing. You don't have people asking you for tickets. You don't have people asking you how you're doing. You're on the road. You're in the hotel with your teammates, Charlton, and management and staff, and you're concentrated on the task at hand, that's playing the game.
Yep.
When you're at home, and I've been in that situation in playoff games, Charlton, and you're bombarded, hey, well, how can you help me? And you're distracted.
Yeah.
And so as we look at Washington and how dominant they've been this year in the NLCS playoffs and the World Series, they've tied records, Charlton. They've tied records for the most consecutive road wins, 6.
Yep.
That's a major league record. They've tied the record for most consecutive wins in the playoffs in the World Series, 8, Charlton. So when you talk about a team of destiny and a team that's playing relaxed, that's where you want to be as a professional athlete. You want to be relaxed and at ease, not feeling any pressure. And they don't. They came into this game. Everyone looked at the Houston Astros of having the top 2 strikeout leaders in major leagues, in Cole and Verlander. And here it is. They've taken advantage of those 2 pitchers in the first 2 games. Even though there's no slouches on the
That's
roster
right.
of the Nationals. When you look at Scherzer, you look at Strasburg,
Yeah.
who was dominant last night, Charlton. Those two pitchers have gone out and been dominating. When you think about Strasburg, he was shut down. I believe it was in 2015 where he was on a pitch count,
Yeah.
and he missed an opportunity to compete in the World Series, Charlton. But, he's come back. His time has come around. And last night he had an epic pitching performance against the Astros. I guess you could say, as they always say, Houston, we have a problem.
They had a problem in a big-time way. So Major League Baseball, you think about Houston, we have a problem. At 12-3 win, they kept scoring even late. Remember, I think you had said the Nationals had scored more runs than anyone in baseball after the 8th inning. Also, with 2 strikeouts, they've outscored more people than anyone else in baseball. And if they keep doing that, obviously, they're within 2 games for their first ever World Series as the Washington Nationals. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they're going back to Washington, Charlton. They're going to have games 3, games 4, games 5, if necessary, in Washington. Now, this is the first time since 1933 that the nation's capital has hosted a World Series game against the Giants the last time that they played. And now, Charlton, this new version of this Washington Major League Baseball team is something that's exciting in every capacity. This is a team when they came into the playoffs, everybody said, well, the Astros had the best record
Right.
in Major League Baseball.
Right.
Yes, over the last 12 games, these teams, two teams were equal. But it came down to the domination of the pitching staff, which is what we had talked about
Amazing.
when this series started.
Yep.
Who would be the most epic pitching staff? And we've seen that come from the Washington Nationals. As they said, Scherzer and Strasburg
Yeah.
out on the mound, the double S's, Charlton. And they've held these Astros bats in check. I mean, the Astros have gotten off to early leads in the game. They've both been able to score in the first couple of innings, Charlton. The
Yep.
games have been tied. But last night, the 7th inning was the determining inning of the game, Charlton, where they scored 6 unanswered runs and took a commanding lead to push that lead to 2-0 in this series.
Yeah, and you mentioned that 7 years ago, Strasburg, he was kind of held out of the postseason play. And now on the biggest stage on Wednesday night, they got to him in the first part of the game. But after that, it's almost like a boxer. It is weird to say this, but sometimes a boxer's better after they get a good punch. Because now they're into it. It doesn't hurt as much as they thought it would, or they just get conditioned for it. Kind of like breaking in a good pair of tennis shoes, Big C. But when you see his dominance, and I know whether it's Verlander or Strasburg, I tend to go with the younger guy. But if you look at the dominating performances, he set the tone because I think he went over 100 pitches again. I can't remember the exact count, but over 100 again. And even when they pulled him out, I think he had 114. I still thought he had some juice left in him, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, baseball players still do, but as the game has changed over the years, Charlton, it's very rare that you get a pitcher to complete a game pitching.
Yeah.
You have your middle relievers, you have your closers. The game is set up for that, to bring in the more heat in the latter part of the game. But you also got to look at, do you want to be able to utilize that pitcher again? And
Right.
that's what they're having Strasburg set up for.
Yeah.
If there is a Game 5, he will be pitching Game 5 in the World Series in the nation capital to close it out for the Nationals
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
So, yes, you can always see that the guy might have a little bit in the tank, but it's about winning the game, not about having a complete game by a pitcher.
All right. Yep. Now, it's hard to talk about guys who are going to be Cy Young players, Big C, Cy Young Award winners, and Hall of Famers too, but it's still on the West Coast. People talk about Clayton Kershaw. And then now Justin Verlander being mentioned in that same category. I think you had mentioned that he had lost 5 starts in playoffs, even though he's a dominant pitcher in the regular season. So I want to get your thoughts, because as an athlete approaches maybe the end of their career, they get all the accolades and the pats on the back. But what must he think of a guy that comes in and just outperforms him when really you've done it for a longer period of time because he's older? But any type of respect given, or to realize that guy's doing what I used to do, Big C, when he watches Strasburg across the mound. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you got to realize Strasburg is not a young player. This is his 10th year in the major league. He was the number 1 pick overall in 2009. So he's doing what everybody has expected of him.
Yeah.
Even Verlander, in being at this point in his career. He's not just risen onto the scene. This was the expectations coming out of San Diego State, out of all major league ball clubs, that this guy hopefully would get to that point that everybody thought he would be at.
Yeah.
And so as I look at Verlander with the great career, Hall of Fame career that he has no reason to hang his head because he's not playing against Strasburg. He's playing against the batters of the Houston Astros. The Washington Nationals.
Yeah.
His batters are not doing the same thing that the Houston Astros, with the Houston Astros that the Washington Nationals are doing.
Yeah.
So it's all about timely hitting. Verlander's had command of the plate, Charlton. It's just you got to get the ball on the bat, and that's the difference in the game.
Yeah. Well, I want to go to kind of an unsung hero in the 7th inning. I believe it was the 7th inning, his biggest inning of the Nationals last night. Kurt Suzuki, Big C. He homered to start off. I think it was a 6-1 rally, and that put the game on ice. But there's also Kendrick. These guys that have been around for some time, to see them coming up and they're making a name for themselves when they really didn't have a name going into it. I know Kendrick has some balls in the St. Louis series, and even in the Dodgers, I think he hit a grand slam in the Dodgers off of Kelly for the Dodgers, and that really, closed the door on that one. And then it's always somebody next coming up that just makes it seem like Houston is out of its element. And you wouldn't think the team with the best record would be out of its element, but it felt that way at home last night. Your thoughts on the great Kurt Suzuki, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, as I look at Suzuki, Charlton, this is a guy who's been a veteran catcher in Major League for a long time.
Yeah.
When you think about the pitching staff that he handled, Charlton, this guy had 3 pitchers on the staff that he handled that had well over 200 strikeouts on the season, the only team to do that. So when you think about a catcher who is in command of calling a game, Charlton, Suzuki is very established in that fact.
Yeah.
And being able to be dominant at the plate. The thing that I give him huge credit for, Charlton, being a minority player in Major League Baseball, calling all the game, being present enough to sit behind the plate, to have command of all these pitchers throughout the season, and then not only that, responding when you get to the postseason, not only in controlling the pitches that are being thrown, but being able to be a dominant player at the plate, hitting home runs and key hits.
Yeah, well, I just love it. Big C, I know we talk about the teams that start off winning game 1. They win 64% of the time the World Series. Isn't it poetic justice if the universe can make such a thing come true? We have Elijah Cummings and all the people that are, showing their heartfelt emotions for him, lost a great leader for not just his country, but for the world, in my opinion. And then you have Republicans and Democrats that have been fighting it since the beginning of time, it seems. All this stuff about impeachment. We have Republican congressmen and senators walking in on a meeting that they should not have been in. And then Elijah Cummings bringing people together that fight each other as politicians. Now, this will galvanize that whole Washington, D.C. area. Whether the Nationals win or not, we don't know. But give me your thoughts on what this does. Sports, it brings people together, and we're seeing this right now as the universe orchestrated. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it brings the people together inside the arena. You got to look at all the different sports that are being played in Washington right now. You got the Nationals playing. You got not the Orioles, but the Redskins playing.
Yeah.
You got the Capitals playing, and you got the Wizards playing, Charlton. So, there's a wide range of sports that's being played there in the Washington area, as well as you got the Ravens right down the street in Baltimore.
Yeah.
You know that the Orioles had a horrific season there in Baltimore also.
Yeah.
But as we look at sports and how it works across the landscape, Charlton, it is there for a lot of people to lose themselves in, when they have troubles in life.
Yeah.
But it's also some of those things that everybody can't get a grasp of, Charlton, economically.
Yeah, that's true, too. The tickets have gotten so astronomical. It's just amazing. But I do see that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to it, and it also will galvanize people that won't go to the same church, but they'll wear the same uniform in celebrating their team. So I wish them nothing but the best. I know Houston has some issues, and they may just go in there and lay down, or they may fight again, Big C. We never know what happens, but I do look forward to it. I know that you made a reference earlier to ice. Did you say that some good boys spat on your ice, or they been spitting on the ice on the hockey field? Make sure your thoughts.
Well, they were rolling around on their blades, and I guess it's a way to make your blades go across the ice a little smoother, Charlton.
Well, that's funny, Big C. So NHL hockey power ratings, I want to get Big C's top 7 teams. And I would say number 1, the Colorado Avalanche. You have Nathan MacKinnon. he's a better bargain than free agent Halloween Candy. You think about it, until 2023, that good old boy is going to be spitting on ice for many, many moons to come. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they got a great deal, and this young player's under contract until 2023 at a bargain basement price, but he's delivering for the Avalanche, and they're top of their division.
Yeah, and I love the fact that Colorado, there's some good old boys that got into cannabis that were broke. I think a guy was saying, he was talking to some TV reporter at CNN News, and he said when he got into that industry that's been illegal for so many years, he said the hardest part was making sure that his pickup truck would go from point A to point B. Now they went public. I think they're worth $2 billion. They are Caucasian, which is easier for them to get licensed, but I thought that was a miraculous story in Colorado. So maybe the Avalanche are more relaxed for other reasons than just meditation, Big C. I want to go number 2, Big C's NHL power rankings. The Buffalo Sabres, they're 8-1, and you think about they've gotten off to a hot start. I think the only team hotter than the Buffalo Bills right now would be the Sabres, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is normally fool's gold with the Buffalo Sabres this time of the year, Charlton. They traditionally get off to a hot start, and the fade seems like the ice is melting underneath their skates.
Yeah, well, sometimes ice does melt when you put too much stuff on it. The Boston Bruins, a lot like a lot of the teams in Boston, it feels as if they're meant to be in the playoffs. I mean, they were supposed to knock out the St. Louis Blues last year, but the Blues had other plans. But you look at Big C's power ratings, the Boston Bruins coming at number 3. They're also 6-1 on the season, and their top line is scoring, and they still look really good, even though I know they must have had some of a hangover from last year. And I mean a hangover literally, Big C, losing to the Blues. Your thoughts?
Well, this was a team that was in the Stanley Cup Finals last year, Charlton, and they haven't started out disappointing at the start of this new season.
No, they haven't not. Now, Hurricanes, as far as I understand, they leave a lot of water and debris in their wake. The Carolina Hurricanes, they're 6-3. Their top line isn't scoring, but they still look really good, and that's something to compete with. They have also the Carolina Panthers, and then you have the Bobcats. But them Hurricanes are doing a decent job so far in the NHL. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, this is why you have depth on your bench, and the Carolina Hurricanes have proven that. When your front line is not being productive, when you have that shift change, Charlton, you're getting the productivity out of that second and third unit. Yeah,
well, they're definitely finding it. I want to go across the border to Canada, home and native land. I got to learn more than just those words, Big C, but the Edmonton Oilers, 7-2. You have Connor McDavid is on pace for 155 points. And honestly, it doesn't seem that ridiculous when you think about it, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is the home of the great one, Wayne Gretzky, and Connor McDavid is trying to make people forget about the great one, Charlton, and hoping to set a new NHL scoring record for a single season.
Yeah, and he'll probably get it too. I want to look at Big C's number 6 team when it comes to NHL power rankings, Big C. For hockey, number 6, the Las Vegas Golden Knights. They're 7-4. And you think of Marc-Andre Fleury, if he keeps up, the Knights may just ride him until his body kind of breaks down. The thing about hockey players, you always said that you thought they were the toughest athletes. How can you get guys that are big and strong, but not only big and strong, they can go around on skates for a couple of hours, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about Andre Fleury, Charlton, since he's been a member of the Las Vegas Golden Knights, this team has been one of the most consistent teams in the NHL. In their inaugural season, they made the Stanley Cup Finals, Charlton.
Yeah.
They made the playoffs in their second season, being eliminated by the San Jose Sharks last year.
Yep.
And right now, they're on top of the Pacific Division all over again.
Well, think about another region of the country. We just up in Canada not too long ago, and now we're talking about Big C's NHL hockey power rankings, the top 7 teams. And number 7, it just happens to be so fitting. The Washington Capitals, they're 7-2. You look at Braden Holtby, he hasn't been very good, but it hasn't really mattered. They're still 7-2, and a lot of good things are happening in Washington. It seems with everyone except for the Washington Redskins. Big C, your thoughts?
This team is just 2 seasons away from removed from winning the Stanley Cup, Charlton, and they seem to be back on track again in the Eastern Division. They're another big name in town, not just the Washington Nationals.
Yeah, and I love the fact, we always talk about regionalizing sports, and when you go up to the great Northeast, you think about the New York market, of course, but then if you look at Boston, it seems like all of their teams are winning, except for Boston College, you can drop it off there. But then, if you look around that Washington area, you have the Generals, you have the obviously Baltimore. They can still consider them Washington area, Washington D.C. area, almost same metroplex. And then the Redskins are struggling. But I would say, I want to get your thoughts. What is the most famous sports franchise in that Washington D.C. Virginia metroplex? Would you still say it's the Redskins, even though they're struggling the most? Big C, your thoughts?
When you talk about heritage, it would be the Redskins. This is a team that's won the most championships in that region, Charlton. They've won 3 Super Bowl titles. I know they've struggled as of late, as many franchises do over time, but no one else has represented that area. I had a greater fan following than the Washington Redskins prior to Daniel Snyder's arrival.
Yeah, and so obviously when they carry the torch, but one more thing I want to bring up, and I know people move all around, but when they played at RFK Stadium before they moved to FedEx Field, that stadium was constructed so that it would actually bounce a little bit when the fans got going, and it was more around their base. Now they've moved out to the suburbs, Big C, and the aura is different, a lot like here on the West Coast. When the 49ers moved out of Candlestick Park, Hunters Point area, and then moved down to Santa Clara, which is where they practice and the headquarters are, the vibe was different because the crowd was different. Yeah, more money, but not as passionate. Do you think that's added to the Redskins' somewhat demise that also was the demise for the 49ers prior to this season, Big C? Your thoughts?
No, I think the demise of the Redskins, Charlton, has been ownership and lack of coaching that they've had in this organization. If you look, they just had no productivity. While they were in RFK, yes, it's nice to play in old digs also, Charlton, but you got to be able to keep up with the current times as far as player personnel and coaching, and that's something they haven't done.
Well, I know everybody's looking forward to having sports be dominant no matter what region they're in, and we look forward to it as well. We're going to come up on what's called the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause, and we'll be coming back. We're going to talk more about what's going on in sports in the world of basketball, and they're really excited about basketball tipping off tonight at the Chase Center in Northern California's own Golden State Warriors. We'll take the Big C Timeout, and we hope that you'll come back and join us in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause, and you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all over the world on the #1 podcast network in the universe. That's iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television, also launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and many other smart TV platforms all over the universe. Really appreciate the way things are going. Big C, tonight in Northern California, it seems like the Bay Area has a plethora of things to do, and now the new kid in town is actually the Chase Center, home of the Golden State Warriors. They come across the bay from Oracle Arena, and now they're in a new part of town. They're more San Francisco-esque now, the way they were when they were out here to begin. But this facility, and if people see it on TV, is so beautiful. It's so opulent. It has all the technology that a person could ask for. But it's kind of a shame that it's happening with a lot of players. Klay Thompson's not there. Willie Cauley-Stein came over from the Kings, but he's injured, not playing right now. And then, of course, the KD's moved to the East Coast, so that's gone. So it's like Steph Curry had always been the alpha male no matter who was around him until KD showed up. Well, he gets the chance to be the alpha male again, even though Draymond Green is the engine that makes him glow. I don't think it's a good sign that they bring Kawhi Leonard. Why invite Kawhi to your open house party, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, that's how NBA scheduling goes. When the schedule was made up, Charlton, Kawhi Leonard was not a member of the Los Angeles Clippers. Yeah. The Golden State Warriors are a team that's under reconstruction right now. In years past, everybody had penciled them in as far as being in the NBA Finals, Charlton. Yeah. They're hoping to be able to get a middle-of-the-road seat in the Western Conference. I don't see this team winning more than 48 games on the regular season. they're going to struggle a lot this year.
Well, I look at it. I'm going to put it at 50. Maybe we'll bet some California red wine on it, or some what you call Southern Boys moonshine. We'll see what happens in the world of sports. I want to get at Big C's thoughts on NBA season underway for 2019-2020 season. And you have the top 5 scorers because everybody likes a guy that can drop it in the bucket. Dropping it in the bucket is Kyrie Irving for the Brooklyn Nets. That last play when he was trying to score, he slipped and fell and still almost got it to go down. But he's going to be so much better off when KD gets healthy. Maybe not 100%, but back in the saddle. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Brooklyn Nets are what they were last year, Charlton. Kyrie Irving dropped 50 points, but it's 50 points in a loss, so you have to wonder, can he distribute and get his teammates better?
Yeah, he's going to have to learn to pass it like Eric Carriel did for the Chargers back in the day. I want to go to the guy they call the Big Cat, Karl Anthony Towns, for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And this is a team that always seemed to have so much talent, so much potential. But you can't tell sometimes if a player is really passionate because he doesn't do a lot of, gesticulations and gyrations and yelling and screaming and pounding his chest like a lot of athletes do. Karl Anthony Towns is legit. He's 36 points a game. But I would love to see just more lion in him, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at Karl Anthony Towns playing along with Andrew Wiggins, 2 prolific scorers. Karl Anthony Towns grew up as a point guard when he was in high school. He grew into his body, but he has to be more consistent as a pro. He got off to a good start in a win last night against New Jersey.
Yeah, and give me your thoughts, though. When you look at a big man that can get up and down the court, just going back in history, is there anyone that he reminds you of that you would like to see him grow into, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the big man of today is not the big man of 30 and 40 years ago because guys now have three-point shots where that shot didn't exist in basketball. So it's hard to equate the guys now. I mean, he could be a Bob McAdoo when he came out of, North Carolina and played with the Buffalo Braves early in his career. He could be that type of player who was a prolific scorer.
Yeah. I would love to see him just develop into what he can be. Lauri Markkanen, Chicago, 35 points a game. And I know people are talking about Chicago sports are all about the Bears, are all about the Cubs, and the Bulls really were somewhat irrelevant until Michael Jordan showed up and they got to 6 championships in 8 seasons. But this guy could lead somewhat of a renaissance for the Bulls. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he can score, and that's what they have at the forward position. They just have to develop some players around him, Charlton, but Markkanen can get it in the hoop.
I want to take you across the border again. And the one thing I'm concerned about is with Fred VanVleet for the Toronto Raptors. And I know the good old boy was shooting the lights out last year in the finals against Golden State. He was a leading scorer the first night because they dropped 34 points. But I'm kind of concerned for him because those championship rings that they handed out, that might separate some of his knuckles, Big C. Would that concern you at all? Your thoughts?
Well, they have some very gaudy rings, Charlton. The Toronto Raptors opened up the season just like they ended the season last year, Charlton, in a dominating fashion and winning a game.
Give me your feeling. Do you think with Canada that not having Kawhi there obviously took a lot of the wind out of their sail, but they're still a franchise that's only been to the promised land one time. Do you think, and I think the answer is probably yes, how will people look at basketball now that they got the championship, and sometimes you tend to take your foot off the gas? That make any sense? Your thoughts?
No, Charlton, they didn't take their foot off the gas. They went out there and dominated in that opening game. I mean, it's very easy, and you can look around throughout professional sports. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles. What have they done since they won the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
They seem to have gotten worse as an organization. Players taking it for granted because they've already won.
Yeah.
The Washington Capitals didn't make it back to the finals last year. The Toronto Raptors are a team that run in obscurity up north of the border because they're not in the U.S. television market, so they don't get all the marketing and on TV all the time and the media playing out.
Yeah.
So it's them against the world. That's how they look at it. They look at it like they're left out, and they have a lot to prove every game. You got VanVleet and Siakam, 4 and 5 scorers in the league, Charlton. So this is a team that came out. They didn't live on their laurels of winning a championship. They said, hey, we can do it all again. This wasn't all about Kawhi.
Yeah, very good point. I want to jump on yesterday's scores before I just go to tonight's short schedule. It was a Magic 94-85 over the Clippers. And the Pistons 119-110 over the Pacers. The Hornets 126-125 over the Bulls. Just talking about the Bulls. And then the Timberwolves 127-126 over the Nets. The great, Kyrie missed that last shot. Maybe he should have passed it off, Big C. And you have the Heat 120-101 over the Grizzlies. The Celtics 107. They lost 107-93 to the 76ers. I think the Sixers are so poised to go further in the Eastern Conference this year because it looks like that good old boy has lost a lot of weight. He must have lost like 20 pounds or so, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it's about staying healthy at any time, but I think that the key to that team is Simmons being able to take more shots. Yeah. He took 18 shots in the game last night, and that's the difference. This is a guy who is now attacking the basket instead of just trying to facilitate, and that's going to be the difference in this team all year long.
Yeah, Joel Embiid looks good, though. At least, hopefully, losing some weight will take the pressure off of his joints, too, Big C. Spurs 120, Knicks 111. You had the Mavericks 108 and the Wizards 100. And then you look at the Jazz over the Thunder by the score of 195. It was a great game up north in the Northwest. The Nuggets 108, the Trailblazers 100. I got to bring your thoughts to the Sacramento Kings. They lost at Phoenix 124-95. They were up at halftime, I think, by about 4 points. Just way too many turnovers. They're going to have to. But Luke Walton, and again, everybody has their own coaching style, but does he know he can get up and maybe get more demonstrative on the sidelines like Steve Kerr does at times, Big C? Or like Coach Pop back down in San Antonio? It just seems like when his young team they were getting run out of the gym in the second half, I didn't even know he was on the bench. He was so quiet. That make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, this is a long season, and you got to let these young players develop. When you look at Sacramento, this is a team in the making. They don't have all the pieces. You got to have leadership on the floor, not just on the bench.
Yeah, well, we already talked about the Clippers at the Warriors, and the Bucks are playing the Rockets. A lot of people have been saying over the years that this could be an NBA Conference Finals, and I just want to get your thoughts. Giannis, Harden, and then Westbrook. Anyone that who would you want having the last shot? I still want to say is Harden, even though some people might say Giannis. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is a game where the Rockets are going to have to learn to play with each other. Milwaukee feels that they can get better than where they were last year, which were a game out of the Eastern Conference Final, Charlton.
Yeah.
So this is an opportunity for both teams to figure out what they have. Both teams lost something in the offseason and free agency.
Yeah.
Harden, the last time he and Westbrook were together, he was a sixth man.
Yeah.
Now he's the lead man.
Yeah, he's a lead man now. We'll see if that makes a difference for them. So congratulations to everyone tipping off in the world of the NBA. Love getting Big C's thoughts on different teams and how things are shaping up. I want to jump to the world of the NFL. Big C's thoughts on tonight's Thursday night football game with the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Washington Redskins. And when you think about this game, it's amazing. The Redskins are only 1-6. What a shame, such a great franchise that's struggling. The Vikings are 5-2. That game kicks off it's already underway at 8:20 kickoff Eastern time, Big C. Case Keenum, 12-4 as a Viking starter. When you think about that in 2017, included in the playoffs. But now you have Cousins, who's found he must have found where Fran Tarkenton used to get his moonshine, Big C. He's playing much better football. Your thoughts?
Well, the Minnesota Vikings, they found a way to get Kirk Cousins to understand what he's doing. What's made him so effective is Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
The play-action pass. And so you're keeping linebackers snuggled up to the line of scrimmage because of the explosiveness of Dalvin Cook, which allows any quarterback to be able to get the ball down the field when you have a very potent running game.
Yeah.
And, when I look at Case Keenum coming back, the last pass he threw in Minneapolis in that stadium, Charlton, was that pass that propelled them to the NFC Championship game to Stephen Diggs.
Yeah.
After that, they lost to the Eagles, but, he had to move on. And this team has not responded to Kirk Cousins since coming to town after that, Charlton.
Yeah, that's true. So, your thoughts again, Adrian Peterson. I mean, obviously, I remember him playing at Oklahoma. Of course, All-American. And just everybody's must-pick running back. Then he came into the league, had a lot of success. Running for the Vikings, not nearly as much when he went to, now that he's at Washington. Not a lot of people have success at Washington anyway. Is there anything that's left in his tank being back in front of the crowd where he made his most of his money. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he had 3 All-Pro seasons while he was in Minneapolis. He had a league MVP. He had a 2,000-yard season, Charlton. The last time he carried the ball in the Dome in Minneapolis, he only had 16 yards playing for the New Orleans Saints. I don't know how effective he can be against this great Viking defense.
Yeah, I just hope he can have a successful career without being injured. I see a lot of guys just banged up. They play a little bit too long. I want to get to Big C's 10 quarterbacks, the 10 worst quarterbacks that are starting in Week 8 in the NFL. And mononucleosis aside, number 10, Sam Darnold. I would love to see this young man have, better success, but the Jets has been an utter disaster so far. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he's reverting back to a lot of the things he did in college, not understanding the NFL speed also, Charlton. He has a coach that seems almost clueless in Adam Gase, so I don't see much of this year from Sam Darnold. He started out even paltry in his rookie year.
Yeah. The windy city Chicago's named for is politics, not because it is so windy, but there's a lot of politics now on the Bears, and the defense is still legit. But as a defensive player, when your offense can't move the ball, then you're going to get worn down. And I know some of those guys, he may have lost some of them in the locker room, if that makes any sense. But Mitch Trubisky for the Chicago Bears, it does kind of make you miss Jay Cutler a little bit. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, at least Jay Cutler would try to throw the ball down the field.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at it, you got a week left to the NFL trade deadline. The Bears should even consider where they are right now with this quarterback, Trubisky. Make a move. Cam Newton's available. Call Carolina and see if they're interested.
Yeah, and I'm not even going to mention Colin Kaepernick, but it's amazing. These guys cannot be that much better, but we know that's about a settlement, and they're not going to put them on the field based on that. Number 8, Big C starts Daniel Jones, New York Giants. Remember when Daniel Jones lit up the Buccaneers, and we all apologized. I mean, Dave Gettleman for his decision-making, the 6th overall pick. And I remember Gettleman called out the media, Big C. He said, all those guys that had their opinions, where are they now? Where are they now? Big C, where are they now? Your thoughts?
Well, I think everybody called Dave Gettleman and asked for that apology card back because Daniel Jones is what we said he was at draft time, and everybody's figured him out that he can't throw the ball downfield.
Yeah, and I want everyone to have success, Big C. Number 7, when it comes to the worst quarterbacks, just based on performance, not on whether you like him or not. Starting Week 8 of the NFL, you got to look at Case Keenum, the Washington Redskins. I don't want to be hard on Keenum, given the supporting cast. In the weather conditions on Sunday, he attempted only 12 passes all game long in one of the shortest NFL games in recent memory. And just to put icing on the cake, the good old boy, listen, they were down by 9. They had less than 10 seconds on the last snap of the ball. And you get sacked for a loss. If they're down by 9, what are they trying to do? Get him hurt in the mud? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this proves you just have to throw the ball in the NFL. And the Washington Redskins are an abysmal team at this moment. And it starts with the owner, Daniel Snyder, and it works all the way down through the coaching staff and the players.
Yeah, it can. But give me your thoughts, though. I understand fighting until the last second. But why would you put your quarterback or even offensive lineman in a sloppy field where people could tear it, they could get an ACL, anything, and you're trying to throw a pass, you're down by 9 with less than 10 seconds to play. There are no 9-point plays in the NFL. Why are you putting your your quarterback and other players at risk of being hurt? Does that make any sense? Or just take a knee and get out of there, Big C, your thoughts?
It just shows the dysfunctionality of the Washington Redskins.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Joe Flacco, Denver Broncos. I feel things could get worse for Flacco now that he's going to be without his best receiver, Emmanuel Sanders. And I know he's playing for the quarterback whisperer in John Elway, but he's no John Elway back in the day. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I think Troy Aikman said it best the last game, that he just doesn't seem to be wanting to play football right now.
Does that mean he has too much money? Could that be a problem? He has too much money, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, players get to a point in their career, and everyone knocked on Sam Darnold about saying that he's seeing ghosts.
Yeah.
I think the ghosts are seeing Joe Flacco at the moment.
Well, it is coming up on Halloween. Number 5, Ryan Fitzpatrick. We used to call him Swaggy Fitzpatrick last year, Big C, with those gold chains. The Miami Dolphins, give credit where it's due. Fitzpatrick has made the Dolphins competitive the last 2 weeks. Unfortunately, it might not be a good thing for the Dolphins. I know they don't believe tanking, but sometimes tanking's not a bad idea, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Fitzpatrick keeps hanging on in the NFL trying to stay employed, Charlton, and he comes out and, his motor's still running. But he also finds a way to get the ball to his opponents on those interceptions.
Maybe too many gold chains is blurring his vision, Big C. Number 4, Andy Dalton, Cincinnati Bengals. At some point soon, the Bengals need to consider really starting Ryan Finley. Now, they got to know what they have at quarterback before heading into the draft. I understand you can stay with guys that were good to you back in the day, but Janet Jackson told him, "What have you done for me lately, Big C?" Your thoughts?
Well, this is another one of those situations, Charlton, where you have a lame duck quarterback. I don't see Andy Dalton being a part of this organization as it moves forwards next year.
Well, they got rid of... So are you suggesting that the guy that helped him get to so many playoff games, I think at least 8 during his tenure, Marvin Lewis, they moved him on. They kept Dalton. Did they keep the wrong person, Big C?
Well, it wasn't Marvin Lewis's problem. I don't know if it was Andy Dalton's problem, Charlton. It was an organizational thing. But they got Zach Taylor, a new coach, who Andy Dalton is not his quarterback.
Right.
They're going to want to go out and get a quarterback that Zach Taylor really wants.
Yeah, that's true. Number 3, Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills. Allen was mostly fine against the Dolphins. I think he avoided turning the ball over good enough, but he remains a fatal flaw in an otherwise very good Bills team that is really a lock for the playoffs, or at least wild card. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they're going to be a playoff team, Charlton. They have a tremendous defense. He needs a little more consistently at quarterback. He's playing well in his sophomore year, but he still has turnover problems periodically.
Yeah, he's got to work on that. Baker Mayfield, number 2, Big C's top 10 worst quarterback starting week 8. The Cleveland Browns, we're going to find out a lot about the Cleveland Browns and a lot about Mayfield when he faces the Patriots defense. And they've been crushing everybody, even good quarterbacks. I would like to see how this Jedi Knight can put up the defense to stop Mayfield. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I look at Baker Mayfield and running his mouth consistently, Charlton. He was criticizing officials, saying that they have to take credibility for what they're doing. I wonder if he looked at his stats and is he taking credibility for leading the NFL in interceptions?
That's a very good point. I mean, you just got to sometimes put your head down and play. Big C, this is a guy, Jameis Winston. Crab cakes aside, not paying for him. A lot of people who get treated with, I guess, favoritism in society, they're not used to paying for food. So maybe the crab cakes, I understand. Some of the other shenanigans, I understand that too. People are not perfect. But here's a guy that when he came out of Florida State, I really thought he was like the next Randall Cunningham. I really thought that. But Tampa Bay Buccaneers, really no movement for Winston, who's been on a bye week. But I just thought that he would be so much more than he is. But maybe he's reached his level, you think? Your thoughts?
Well, 2 things Jameis Winston needs to do. He needs to get out of Florida as a football player, and he needs to stay out of Uber cars.
Yeah. Well, I understand. A lot of people got to stay out of Uber cars too, Big C. A lot of things going on with those companies. Make sure if you get in one that somebody knows where you are. I want to get on to a few things that can happen in the world of college football. Now, if you think about it, I just want to get into some of the top 5 starting quarterbacks this season because everybody has their own opinion about who's doing the best at whatever school. I'm going to just throw out some names and you can say if you think they're in the top 1 or the top 5, whatever. But Justin Fields, Ohio State, look at his numbers, 1,492 yards passing, 22 touchdowns. He only has 1 interception. They're about to get into the meat of their schedule, but I'm impressed with him, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he's one of the top transfer quarterbacks in college football, Charlton, when you're looking at Justin Fields. This was a kid that was at the University of Georgia. They said he couldn't crack the starting lineup. He transferred to Ohio State, and he has the Buckeyes, one of the top 2 teams in the country, realistically.
Yeah, and Ohio State's always good. No matter who they have, they tend to just plug players in, and he's just another late good ones, Big C. Jacob Eason, Washington Huskies, 1,981 yards passing, 16 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And when I look at how they narrowly lost that game at home to Oregon, but then I also look at the fact that they dropped a couple of other games. They dropped the game at Stanford. And this is a team that seemed to be better on paper than they performed on the field. But I still want to credit Jacob Eason for being a dominant quarterback. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he's another one of those transfer kids, Charlton, and he was also at the University of Oregon. He was beat out by Jacob Fromm 2 years ago after an injury. He transferred to Washington, sit out. He had the Huskies as one of the top teams in the Pac-12, Charlton, and he's a bona fide pro prospect.
Yeah, he really is. I want to get to three more. Jalen Hurts, Oklahoma Sooners. He has 2,074 yards passing, 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And I want to say, when the game against Texas, they won by 7, but it should have been a blowout game because they had some careless turnovers. Made you wonder if there were point spread stuff going on with prop betting. But they were a much better team than the score indicated. But Hurts is just so talented. I'm not going to say he's Russell Wilson, but he does play a lot like Russell Wilson for the Seahawks. Big C, your thoughts?
This is a kid that has evolved beyond everyone's expectations. We know what he did as he started at Alabama, 26-2, lost his job because they wanted more sparkle in the offense.
Yep.
But he's gone to Oklahoma and sparkled. Once again, another one of those transfer quarterbacks, Charlton, that's playing at elite status in the NCAA this year.
And one more thing I like about him, he has such maturity. Now, contrast how Baker Mayfield was when he was at Oklahoma, and I guess when they beat Ohio State on the road, he took some type of a flag and tried to plant it on the midfield at the Buckeye Stadium, Big C, and just like a sign of disrespect. I think he also grabbed his crotch in some game walking off. I forgot what team they were playing against. Now look at this guy in Jalen Hurts. He's like a professional quarterback playing at the college level. Just give me your thoughts on his mentality and how he actually shows well for the status of his school because of the way he shows his sportsmanship, Big C, compared to Baker Mayfield. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he's always been a class act as a person, as an athlete. You look at what he went through at the University of Alabama. He did not squabble at all when he was benched after not really losing his job, having his job taken away from him. He went to Oklahoma. He was embraced by the program. He catapulted himself into the number one status at quarterback, even though they had the number one high school recruit at quarterback at Oklahoma, also Spencer Rattler, Charlton, and he's kept him on the bench.
Yeah, I mean, I really love to say when the man has great character and he does it and it makes his family proud, I really love saying that about young players. And then Shane Buechele from SMU. That's a team that's undefeated. He has 2,122 yards passing, 18 touchdowns, and then he has 6 interceptions. Now, this is not the Pony Express with Dickerson and James from back in the day, but to have an undefeated team this time of the year, that's still saying something. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the last time that SMU was undefeated for a season, Charlton, was in 1982, and they went on to win the Cotton Bowl that year when they were part of the Big 8 Conference. But SMU is a dominant program, and they're the last undefeated team outside the Power 5, Charlton, that would potentially have a chance of making the college football playoffs. It's great to see SMU being the best team in Texas, and you think about Shane Buechele.
Yeah.
He transferred from the University of Texas down the road to SMU over in Dallas, Charlton, and is having a banner year.
Yeah, it's good to see programs. It's like the Phoenix, the rebirth, and he's doing that for the SMU program. And I want to go up to a guy that at SMU and really helping Orgeron look fabulous. Orgeron doesn't throw passes. He's more of a pounded-out type of mentality. But you have a passing game at LSU that can really get their fleet-footed receivers involved. Joe Burrow, LSU's passed for 2,484 yards passing, 29 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. And more so than that, he made the Texas Longhorns secondary look a bit average. They put up, I think, 45 points on the road at Texas. You know that Southern Justice that Texas has with the officiating crew? That couldn't even stop him. And now to see what he did to Florida down in Death Valley, this guy obviously is a lot better than what they thought it would be, but not as good as he can be. Big City, your thoughts?
Well, he's been the darling of college football this year when you look at what Joe Burrow has done. This is another one of those kids who also transferred away from Ohio State. This is what Justin Fields transferred into this year. But he lost the starting job to Dwayne Haskins. He didn't want to sit around and wait to see what Dwayne Haskins was going to do. He transferred to LSU.
Yeah.
He has changed the landscape of Tiger football, Charlton. They are reveling probably with the best team in the country right now. And they're going to face Alabama in a couple of weeks in a huge showdown. But the common thing about these quarterbacks, these 5 quarterbacks that you've talked about, Charlton, you look at 5 quarterbacks that are all college transfers and they've gone on and made other programs better.
Yeah.
4 of ththose quarterbacks are undefeated, Charlton, around the country. They're all in the top 15 in the country. The only one with losses is out there at Washington, Jacob Eason.
Yeah.
So when you look at the landscape of college football from here on in, you're going to see a lot more kids transferring at quarterback for that opportunity to play at big-time programs.
That makes a lot of sense. So tonight, college football tonight, Big C style, Houston Cougars. They're 3-4. They host number 16 undefeated SMU. Just finished talking about the rise of that program. That's 7-0. The Mustangs are the highest-ranked group of 5 teams in college football. That's not a Power 5 program. But Houston, that's a team also that can play good football because a lot of these kids played together in high school against each other. It may not be as easy as it could look. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I think with Houston Cougars, they've given up on the season. They have a half a dozen kids that are redshirting this year. There were starters at the start of the season, so they're a little undermanned in going against SMU tonight, Charlton. The Pony Express should be able to open up on this team.
Well, it's amazing. I love the fact that we're playing college football, and then we have NBA basketball, World Series happening, NFL football's happening, Tiger Woods even swinging the golf club again. I think, did he have 9 birdies, Big C? Did they mean birds in the cage or on the golf tournament, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, over in Japan, he was probably eating some sushi.
Yeah, sushi and birdies go well together. On this date, October 24th, is for American history, 1944. Think about this. A new wave of recruiting began the day after. It was General MacArthur returned to Asian theater for operations with the Allies talking about Germany and house-to-house fighting. There's a group of girls called the Camera Girls. They did photographs. They were black women that oftentimes went to parties and they took pictures in black and white, and it helped a lot of people that were going off to the service. And I just want to make that be known because this happened in the early 1940s. Charles Williams, he owned several Los Angeles nightclubs in the 40s, and a lot of photographers that he gave opportunities to were African-American women. And so even to this day, some of the photography is really held in high esteem. I want to say you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week around the world on the #1 podcast network in the universe, an iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television, also launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon TV, Fire TV, and a lot of other sports programs. Really appreciate that. You're called prescient when you have knowledge of things before they happen. We've talked about this so many times about paying athletes for their labor or for their intellectual property, and a lot of people have always fought against that, but I don't think it's a good thing. And now, California, Gavin Newsom, he signed that pay for play, and your likeliness, you can get paid on your intellectual property and for your work, your name. Well, college sports now, it's happened also in Florida and New York. So in Georgia is now the latest state, Big C, to introduce legislation to pay college athletes. That now brings the total states to 7. I think the SEC is going to really benefit from that. Your thoughts?
Well, I really don't think it will change the landscape of college football as it exists now. We've been watching this for years. I mean, you can go back out there to the West Coast where the Bush family paid $1 for $1 million house when he went to USC.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these under-the-table deals have always been done. There's going to be a cap, even with athletes being able to get paid money, Charlton, even when all the states, and I think it's going to have to become a national law, not just a state law, because it has to be regulated evenly across the country.
Yeah.
But we see this every year in college football when it comes to recruiting. We have athletes commit and we have athletes decommit. You think athletes decommit from a university and go to another university just because they like the color of the uniforms at those universities?
Right.
No, Charlton. All of a sudden, somebody came up with a little more money underneath the table that has always been done, even in the days when I played college football.
Yeah.
So that exercise will still continue. That's why this thing will be legislated nationally so they can cap on what the players make. There will not be a college football player, Charlton, out there making legal six-figure salary or anything off of his likeness because they'll put a cap on it. But the under-money table will always be there. So when you see athletes decommit from universities, and you talked about a quarterback out there in Southern California that decommitted from a school and committed to Alabama.
Yeah,
you think Alabama didn't have a little more money than that
Bryce Young
school did right there in his own backyard? No, Alabama had the money as well as being on national television all the time. So kids want to have things when they go to college. They want to have a national championship. They want to have an opportunity to play. They want to have an opportunity to get to the NFL. So they're going to go to the best programs that allow that for them, not just because they're making money, but because they also have the best opportunity to extend their careers as a professional.
Yeah, that's Bryce Young for national #1 ranked Mater Dei, Santa Ana. They play #2, St. John Bosco tomorrow. Big C's Friday Night Lights will preview that. So just in closing out tonight's show, Houston, you may have a problem, but teams that started 0-2 that went on the World Series, it's happened 3 times. 1985, the Royals. 1986, the Mets. 1996, the Yankees. Will 2019 add to that list? Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, we have this one college football game tonight with the SMU Ponies playing. It would be nice to see SMU go undefeated this year and play once again in a New Year's Bowl game, which we have not seen since New Year's of 1983.
Well, we haven't seen it since 1983, and maybe we'll see it in 2019, but you can always see every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.